everyone, I am here today with my top 10 reads of 2016. Now for these books, not all of them will have been published in 2016, although a handful of them were. It was more just a case of whether they were new to me and whether they also were a 5-star read, and then whether they then were that extra mile of I could remember it so well and loved it so much, because obviously I gave quite a few books 5 stars last year. Not loads. Probably about 20 or so in total. I didn't check before and I should probably have checked. But yeah, I've narrowed this down to 10 books. And I've also actually sorted them from 10th place to 1st place. So I'm just going to talk you through this list while I have a bit of tea, because I didn't get much sleep last night, so tea is fantastic right now. So in 10th place is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. And do I need to say anything really? My friend had been pestering me for years, definitely not years, quite a while to read this book, and she lent it me and I kept putting it off even though it was sitting on my bookcase. I was like, I've got all this other stuff to read, and in the end I picked it up and I was like, why did I leave this so long? I absolutely loved it. In case you've never read the book or seen the film, The Perks of Being a Wallflower is a contemporary young adult novel. Follows a guy named Charlie who is a bit socially awkward. He doesn't necessarily know where he fits in, and this is his sort of journey in fitting in and making friends and experimenting with trying to get a girlfriend and all that sort of stuff. In 9th place we have Ashes by Stephen Manchester. Now this is a real surprise one for me. This was one that I'd requested from the publishers to review, and I thought it would be an okay read. I was excited to read about it. It's about two brothers. Oh, my jumper's strangling me. It's about two brothers who don't get along at all. They didn't get along with their father at all, and they get the news that he has died and that he wants them to travel across the US with his ashes in the back of the car, and that they've got to travel together is the basic gist of it. And neither brother likes the idea of this at all. They both pretty much hate each other's guts. What is that? Oh, come on, go away. So yeah, this is a real surprise one for me, and it's an adult fiction novel, and I actually just was so pleasantly surprised by it, it made it onto the list. In 8th place we have The Midnight Watch, a novel of the Titanic and the Californian by David Dyer. And this is one that I've been talking about quite a lot this year, so this one probably isn't very surprising to some of you. But this is a novel about the Californian, which is a ship that was nearby the Titanic when it sank. Oh, Poppy, you up? Did that naughty helicopter wake you up, or did I wake you up? Right, sorry for any gnawing noises that you can now hear in the background. My hamster's decided now is a great time to wake up and chew on one of her chews that she has had for several months and never really touched before, until now. So yeah, this is the story of the ship that was near the Titanic when it sank, and how it didn't actually go and help rescue anyone from the Titanic. It's a fictional encounter. It's difficult to know whether any of this is even remotely accurate or whether it's all totally fiction. But the author did do a heck of a lot of research. I was reading in the back of the novel after finishing this book all the research involved, and I just thought it was really impressive. The story is really fantastic, really gripping, and a bit further in there's a story within a story. So there is a passage where someone has wrote a story about some fictional people upon the Titanic, and this was just a really, really interesting read. Definitely the most interesting part for me, because the Titanic is a more interesting part of the book rather than the people who supposedly didn't give a monkeys on the Californian. But yeah, in 7th place we have The One by Kira Cass, and this was really tricky for me. I almost forgot that I even read this book during 2016, because it was one of the first books, if not the first book, I read of the year. And so I was looking through trying to work out which books I wanted to include, and I saw this and I was like, oh, I read this in 2016. Don't remember it very well, but it's an exception because I remember the ending. I remember being blown away. I know I gave it 5 stars and I know I loved it, and I know that it is one of my favourites that I would go and reread time and time again. so that probably lets it deserve to be there. On the other hand, I do remember hating the beginning to the point where I'd made an awful mistake picking this third book up. Somewhere in the midst of it all, it got better and improved, obviously, or I wouldn't have given it the 5 stars. But yeah, despite all this, I just felt like it wouldn't have done the series justice if I hadn't have been able to put this somewhere within my top 10. In 6th place, we have Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I had been putting this one off for longer than I should have, and in the end I picked up the audiobook version of it, and I just loved it. I thought it was fantastic. The storytelling was great, the world building was great, the narrator was fab. It worked so well. And I really don't know if I've ever read a world that is that well developed before. And I can see why this book has developed so much hype, and it deserves all of that hype. It is such a fantastic read. In 5th place, we have House of Silence by Sarah Barthel. And this is another one that has surprised me quite a bit. It was a book that I ended up picking up, I think it might have even been unsolicited on NetGalley. I think it might have been one where the publisher sent me an email and I kind of looked and thought, yeah, that one might be alright. Okay, I might give it a go, and just kind of downloaded it just in case. And then I fancied it one day, picked it up, and yeah, what a great read. This is a historical fiction, romance, mystery, thriller, psychological thriller, all sort of mixed into one. We have this young woman named Isabel, and she is set to marry a guy, and they are all engaged and everything, and in that day and age it was all about your social status and how they could improve their lives upon who they marry, and everything was going well and set to work, and the family were happy with the choice. And then Isabel sees her future husband kill someone. Obviously this is traumatic. Even more traumatic is that she then runs away, injures herself, passes out if I remember correctly, and then ends up at home, and it turns out that her fiance is the person that actually carried her home. And so she doesn't know whether he knows that she saw, and she's traumatised at the thought of marrying a murderer. She doesn't know what to do about it. In the end, she works out the only way that she can definitely avoid possible risk to her own life is to actually pretend to be a mute and get admitted to an asylum. And that is what she does. And there she meets some interesting characters and makes some very strange and in some case famous friends. Again, this is another one that had a lot of research done, and I read around afterwards and found out just how much research the author had done, and I was just so impressed. Like, the famous person that goes to this asylum actually did go to this asylum in real life, and it's just so interesting and fascinating. I love a good historical fiction. So the book in 4th place is How to Be a Woman by Caitlin Moran. And this one, again, I feel like the way to make it into my favourites is to surprise me in some way. Because this one, I picked up the audiobook. I'd heard great things, don't get me wrong, but I didn't think it was necessarily going to be my cup of tea. So yeah, I was really surprised when I finally picked this one up and actually devoured it and loved every minute of it, and found it such an important read that I feel like I would love to go around recommending it to just anyone and everyone. This is probably the first book that I've really read that is sort of based on feminism and the ideas behind feminism, and so much more than that as well. I mean, this book made me laugh. It really does teach you everything about being a woman, and I just loved this book. In 3rd place, we have one of my favourite books from the series of unfortunate events so far. I've still not finished the series for the first time ever. I've just finished book 8, but for this video my favourite is book number 2, which is The Reptile Room, and of course this is by Lemony Snicket or Daniel Handler. And I think the reason why I love this one so much is because Uncle Monty is just such an interesting character, and the children really seem happy for their short time that they are with him, and I liked that happiness. I should probably have been one of those people to stop reading every time you're told to stop reading, because I just wanted to see the children happy, and that is definitely one of the best places that they have lived so far that I am interested in. I think that would have been a fantastic place to live. In second place we have Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. This was easily the best piece of work I've ever read by Cassandra Clare yet. It's so strong. If you compare it to her earlier work, it's just insane the difference. Her writing has definitely come along in leaps and bounds. The plot was fantastic. The length was also dreamily long. I feel like I was in a slump pretty much from finishing this book onwards for the rest of the year. I enjoyed it so much. I can't wait for Lord of Shadows to come out. I'm currently trying to decide whether to read all of the Shadowhunter Chronicles again as a reread before Lord of Shadows comes out, or whether to just not even try and do that. Let me know in the comments below if you think I can actually achieve reading all of those in time. And in first place we have the only book of which I've actually got a physical copy of, which is just ridiculous. That is The Undomestic Goddess by Sophie Kinsella. And what a fantastic book this is. Now, Sophie Kinsella is one of my favourite authors, but what surprised me about this was that I enjoyed this more than the Shopaholic books. And not only that, but this book took me on a roller coaster of emotions. I actually was a mess while reading this book a lot of the time. I was crying, I was just... It was such a roller coaster, and it was so easy to identify with how a person in today's day and age in the working world and how the stresses can just get on top of you. And it's not that unrealistic that someone doesn't know how to do their own housework in this day and age, because we spend all our time at work. Both me and my partner are at work all the time. When are you meant to do the housework exactly? How are you meant to have time to do it? How are you meant to learn how to do the ironing? How are you meant to... Okay, so hers is taken a little bit to the extreme. Can't even do simple things like toast very easily. But, you know, you get the idea. And I just thought this was such a realistic and fantastic and interesting book. And I'm really pleased that it's at #1 in my list. So thank you so much for watching this video. Please let me know what your favourite books of last year were in the comments down below. And I will see you in my next video. Bye bye! I swear all she ever does is eat. That was the noise that was going on when I was recording. Yes, you might well look around, Missy. Yes, you might. That's it, go on your roof then. Suicide off. I'm going to use the bridge back down, that makes the change. Don't go back in your hole. That is where she was when I was trying to film, in that little bit. Just climbing around in that hole, chewing at that chew. She's got all these possible beds, but no, I'm going to sleep in the hole instead. What a ridiculous hamster you are. Yes, you. I'm talking to you. Have you gone all internet shy? Have you? Have you gone all internet shy? Are you feeling sociable? Oh, you actually are. Oh, I feel so lucky to have a tame robo. I'll leave you alone now. Please go back to sleep instead of being a weirdo. Thank you. Goodbye.